What's going on, man? It's your boy Butler. It's the best day of my life. Tomorrow's not promised. Shit, go ahead and do your little dance while they still playing your song. So, we have another inmate that has passed away in the Georgia Department of Corrections. His name is Sidney Dorsey. Now, Sidney Dorsey is actually the ex-sheriff of DeKalb County. It's the county that I live in now. And got some mixed emotions. Tiffany did put up this picture as she does with every individual who passes away, despite their crime, their race, their religion. And somebody got in and said that whoever is running this page, instead of trying to be the first or second one to break news, please do your due diligence and check out what these people are locked away for before posting them like they were productive citizens before incarceration. Thank you from the victim's family who can finally rest peacefully. Sheesh. All they got on their head. Let me see. I'm the one who runs this page, and I know what he did. Still yet, I'm posting his picture. Also, I post men and women's picture that have died behind the wall, no matter what their crime is. That is very true. We're rubbing that in the victim family face. We're going to see about getting this page shut down. Are you for real? Now you just sound goofy. I get it. You don't care unless it affects you. I'm not rubbing anything in the victim's face. I care about the victims as well. I'm simply posting to let it know that he has passed away. I do not post people's pictures depending on what they may or may not have done. I know what he did was not right. I'm not the one that is here to judge. For that, I have posted many people pictures on this page. That doesn't mean that I agree with their charges, crimes. Sorry. Remember, her delusional. She's not posting her opinion. So yeah, I wasn't gonna say that, but make it said, shut the fuck up with your sensitive ass. I would. Okay, so Sidney Dorsey. Let's dive off into who Sidney Dorsey was. Let's be clear. He was. I'm trying not to give my personal opinion on this matter, but there was a situation. Let's just get into the footage, bro. This is Sidney Dorsey in 1978, which is a year after I was born. So it looks like he was a detective at some point in time. He actually was a detective during the time that Wayne Williams.
It was primarily a information meeting. It was basically a strategy meeting. We're now concerned about dealing with the future. Other meetings, probably with the various memberships, meetings with the mayor, meeting with the commissioner, meeting with other concerned citizens.
So do you get the feeling that things are more together after tonight than they were last night?
Yes, I have this distinct feeling.
Now, that's Dorsey in 78. I'm not sure if that's when he was.
Detective Floyd Reeves and I have in custody as a result. Yes, in my opinion, that represents an encouraging trend. Naturally, rather not have any homicides, but if we're running 3 behind a year previous to this, I would consider that an encouraging trend. I would think that that someone is doing a job out there. I think that the narcotics division is doing a fantastic job in busting a lot of these drug pushers and drug users. And of course, last year, a lot of the homicides was as a result of drug-related homicides. So therefore, the narcotics division should be complimented in this case.
Well, what can be done, in your opinion, to reduce homicides even more?
Well, I believe that most of the homicides are domestic-related homicides. Now, I feel that if the uniform officer, when he gets a call of that type, if he would intervene more, I think he can make out a prima facie case against.
So here's the situation. I'm gonna give you my 2 cents, bro. I think he worked his way up through the ranks. Prior to him being a homicide detective, I don't know what he was doing, but from 78 to I think the early 90s, maybe even the late 80s, he ran for office for the sheriff. He was looking to be elected in the DeKalb County, and at that particular time, DeKalb County was a primarily white region of Georgia, and he ran and he failed. Now, let me see.
One or two of the parties.
And I'm gonna try to get to some of this footage. Some of it I have not reviewed, so I'm not sure. I do know the story because I'm from DeKalb County, and I think I was in jail when he got locked up.
And making a lawful arrest, then we might have reduced the homicide rate in that fashion.
It was a hearing for the court to decide if Sid Dorsey should get out of jail.
I have no doubt that if he was given a bond, he would come to court whenever he was supposed to come to court. I do not believe that he would flee.
I do.
But the state presented apparently...
Okay, so what we have here, now what took place at one point in time, I think he was coming up for re-election. And then there was a lot of stuff that was going on with Sidney Dorsey and his regime that, a lot of people were not okay with. A lot of money was being moved around and a lot of shadiness from my understanding of it. And, Sheriff Brown came in and he was coming to clean DeKalb County up, man. He was coming to clean DeKalb County up, and Sidney Dorsey had him unalived.
Convincing information.
And right here, he's been locked up, and I guess he's trying to get a bond to bond. Imagine that. Imagine being the sheriff of DeKalb County and trying to bond up out there at that same county that you was the sheriff in, bro.
That Dorsey ordered the death of Derwin Brown.
Mr. Dorsey was angry about losing the election, and that he thought that he could, if Mr. Brown never took office, Mr. Dorsey might be able to run again in a special election or in a runoff election if Mr. Brown were no longer alive.
They're basing it on the word of admitted assassin Patrick Cuffey, who's escaped prosecution by saying Dorsey helped him plan it from the start.
Mr. Cuffey said that Mr. Dorsey urged them not to use a firearm, as a firearm could be traced. He said that he wanted him strangled or choked out to not leave any ballistic evidence.
And then the recollections of this Sidney Dorsey supporter after Brown defeated Dorsey for sheriff.
When I asked him about what he was going to do,
What Mr. Dorsey was going to do?
yes, that Derwin Brown would not assume the office of sheriff. There would be a special election. He would enter and he would win.
This man lost his election, and he took his opponent's life.
Sidney Dorsey deserves due process.
Reverend Timothy McDonald and the concern.
Now check this out. Here is a group of Sidney Dorsey supporters. This is prior to them finding out what was really going on with this case. It looked there. That's on Memorial Drive. That's in front of the jail. Let's hear. I hadn't seen this, but I recognized this place. I stayed in that building for 3 years, so yeah.
Black clergy feel Sidney Dorsey is already being treated unfairly.
We are here to ensure that Sidney Dorsey gets a fair trial by a jury and not tried, convicted, and sentenced by members of the media.
The group says it'll watch every step of the case against the former sheriff, watching for...
This is yet another example of a preacher can say anything if they just talk real loud. And
scenes like this one, which Dorsey's attorney says paints the wrong picture of his client.
Sidney Dorsey, a good man,
Huh?
was treated like Timothy McVeigh. That paints a colorful picture of guilt.
Brian still doesn't blame the media, but the concerned black clergy does.
When people are wrong, regardless to their race or their gender, they should pay. But let that be decided by a jury of peers, and not misguided and self-serving journalism.
Dorsey's wife was in the crowd but made no comment. Meantime, Derwin Brown's family feels the group is taking sides.
Yes, though I do feel it was too soon for anybody at this juncture.
Oh, man. Come on, man. Oh, man. Oh, man. And to come to find out that he was really guilty, y'all out here with saxophones, and he got his church clothes on.
To show support of the Brown family, the rally ended with a prayer at a monument in his memory. The concerned black clergy says there are two victims in this case, the murdered Derwin Brown and the accused Sidney Dorsey.
And like Donovan's case, it is being investigated by Internal Affairs. Thelma Gutierrez, CNN, Los Angeles.
We move on to Georgia now, and a jury has found a former sheriff guilty of murdering the lawman who was just days away from replacing him in office. Prosecutors say it was a sordid tale of corruption, abuse, and cold-hearted vengeance. More now from our David Mattingly.
In the fall of 2000, Derwin Brown won the race for sheriff in Atlanta's neighboring DeKalb County. Promising to win corruption, supporters viewed him as a breath of fresh air in the management of the county's law enforcement and jail. But just 3 days before he was to take office, Brown was gunned down in his driveway. An assassination, some said, ordered by the man he defeated, the outgoing sheriff, Sidney Dorsey. And Wednesday afternoon, a Georgia jury agreed, finding Dorsey guilty of murder.
We, the jury, find the defendant as to count one guilty.
The verdict was the end of a long and emotional journey for the Brown family.
I'm glad that it's over. I'm glad that the jury, in its wisdom, saw what really happened. And
I mean, rest in peace to the Queen Phyllis Brown as well. She passed away not too long ago. She was a beautiful woman too.
now I can go face Derwin with a smile.
Two alleged co-conspirators had previously been acquitted, and concerns carried into the case against Dorsey that there might not have been enough evidence for a conviction. The prosecutor's case relied heavily on the shaky credibility of a former sheriff's deputy who testified against Dorsey in exchange for immunity.
This was a tragic verdict for an innocent man, but that in no way belittles the loss of our judge.
Hey man, a lawyer say anything. That man, you sit here looking at this, you would say this. Oh man, preachers and lawyers.
Dorsey was also found guilty on 11 charges of corruption, 2 Georgia racketeering counts, 1 count of violating his oath of office, and 8 counts of theft for using county personnel for his personal use.
The first suspect was this defendant, Sidney Dorsey. A corruption investigation had already begun by my office and by Derwin Brown.
The jury deliberated less than 3 full days. As late as noon on Wednesday, the jury had remained deadlocked on the charge of murder and asked the judge if they should continue. 2.5 hours later, a verdict was reached, and the nearly 2-long search for justice in the murder of a reform-minded sheriff was over. David Mattingly, CNN.
And we asked Sidney Dorsey's attorneys to come on with us this morning. They did not accept our invitation, but that invitation was accepted by the district attorney for DeKalb County. That is J. Tom Morgan, joining us this morning from Albany, Georgia, where the case took place. Mr. Morgan, good morning.
Good morning.
Your reaction to getting this verdict?
It was a long time coming. Justice has been served. This case began with a corruption investigation that ultimately ended up in a murder, and we are very grateful that this jury saw the evidence and rendered a verdict that spoke the truth.
People who have followed this case in Georgia and the Southeast saw 2 trials. They saw one that took place here in DeKalb County, your home county, and that was not found. with Sheriff Dorsey, you were able to get the conviction. What was the difference this time, and did you go back and rework your game plan for this trial?
No, nothing was reworked. The difference was that the motivation was clearly understood in this trial. This was about a man who was so consumed with power that he would do anything to keep that power, and this jury understood that motivation. In the last case, it was hard to understand why two people would murder the sheriff.
And another big difference was one took place here in DeKalb County in the Atlanta area, the other moved, change of venue to basically small town Georgia. How did that affect this case?
Well, they were going to have a tough time finding a jury in DeKalb County that did not know too much about this case. And so we came down here to Albany, which is my hometown where we grew up, and I knew that the jurors here would have a real sense of what was right and wrong, and they did so. The jurors down here were amazing. They all wanted to come to jury service. They felt it was a privilege to serve on the jury, and every day they conscientiously listened to the evidence.
And because you know this town so well, I think people across America who are watching will be really interested to hear in how you built this case. You built the corruption side first, and you led that step of logic up to murder, up to the charge of murder, getting people to think, well, if he could do this, this, and this, then perhaps he is a killer. Share with us some of those other charges, some of the outrageous things that this man was found guilty of doing.
He used sheriff's deputies, for example, to drive his children to and from college while they were on duty. He used sheriff's deputies to work in his private security firm while they were on the clock for DeKalb County. He used sheriff's deputies to fix his personal cars. Over and over and over again, he used the resources of our sheriff's department for his own personal use and private gain. I think the jurors understood that, and they understood that once he was capable of doing this and he was going to lose those perks that he was stealing from the county, he was capable of murder.
Well, and most importantly, he was found guilty of not just murdering a man, but a man who the voters in your county had chosen to serve as sheriff. Why have you chosen not to go for the death penalty in this case?
This is a type of case when you're building it on circumstantial evidence and corroboration from co-conspirators. We knew that the death penalty would be very, very hard to get, and that's why we did not seek the death penalty.
And yet you planned for Sidney Dorsey to spend a long time in jail or prison, I imagine.
We believe this man will die in the Georgia prison system. He's 63 years old. He's looking at life sentence plus 20 years, and he'll have to serve every day of it.
DeKalb Morgan, District Attorney for DeKalb County, thank you for joining us today.
He said something that was very dear. I don't know if y'all caught that.
Or prison, I imagine.
We believe this man will die in the Georgia prison system. He's
Hey, man, he said it.
63 years old. He's looking at life sentence plus 20 years, and he'll have to serve every day of it.
DeKalb Morgan, District Attorney for DeKalb County, thank you for joining us today.
Atlanta Police Detective Sidney Dorsey, tough, experienced, streetwise, 22 years a cop, 15 of them spent investigating murders. On August 21st, 1980...
Oh, back up. Is that the same guy who just said that he would... Damn, bro. I've seen watch Clifford Jones' case. All right.
22 years a cop, 15 of them spent investigating murders. On August 21st, 1980, Dorsey picked up a case he can't forget. The murder of 13-year-old Clifford Jones, whose body was found beside this dumpster behind a Northwest Atlanta laundromat. Cause of death, strangulation. The murder of Clifford Jones, one of 22 blamed on Wayne Williams, linked to him by circumstantial fiber evidence following Williams' 1982 conviction of 2 other murders.
I think that James Edward Brooks is the best suspect.
James Edward Brooks, a 36-year-old homosexual convicted felon, identified by at least 5 witnesses as being with...
Now, this is when he's talking about the Wayne Williams, the Atlanta child murders that he was only convicted of. Wayne Williams was convicted of unaliving 2 adults. So,
killing or disposing of Clifford Jones. James Edward Brooks, questioned by Sid Dorsey and 4 other investigators, Brooks failing at least 2 lie detector tests. Also questioned by Dorsey, Fred Cosby, then a 19-year-old high school student who claimed to have witnessed the sexual molestation and murder of Clifford Jones. Cosby telling investigators, quote, when the little boy started crying real loud, Jamie put a rope around the little boy's neck and pulled on the rope.
We had absolutely no reason to disbelieve him. He was discovered. He gave his statement freely and voluntarily without threats or promises. There were other witnesses who gave credible statements that I found felt.
In the 4 months following Derwin Brown's murder, the DeKalb GBI FBI task force has compiled reams of evidence. The grand jury will have to sift through it all to determine 3 things. Who would have the opportunity to kill the sheriff-elect? What was the motive? And third, did a wild drug-related shootout at the home of ex-deputy Patrick Cuffey have anything to do with the murder? The evidence that focuses on individuals is largely circumstantial. The list of potential suspects very large. No suspects have been named, but Cuffey has told us he believes he's the prime target. Cuffey and friend Paul Skyers have had their homes searched by the task force. Other friends have been arrested for lying to police about Cuffey's whereabouts. One of the things we've learned the grand jury will likely hear about is evidence concerning cellular phones, that when certain people said they were at home the night of Derwin Brown's murder, the phone records show that they were actually using a cell tower miles away. The cell phone records have the potential of putting certain key players in key places before and around the time of the murder. Security consultant Brent Brown.
The cellular phones have been used to solve a lot of crimes by pinpointing where people were, who used the phone, what time of day. Every time you dial into your phone, your personal identification number for that cell phone shows up in a record somewhere.
Ross Cabot, Channel 2 Action News.
It's NYPD Blue at 8, Forensic Files at 9, and The System at 10. Join the investigation tonight on Court TV.
Let's go to the final part of J. Tom Morgan's rebuttal closing argument.
Ladies and gentlemen, there was a coercive culture of corruption in the DeKalb County Sheriff's Department from 1997 to the year 2000. We, the citizens of DeKalb County, are here to ask you, the citizens of Dougherty County, for justice. For those of us who were growing up here in Albany, in 1961, we remember a significant event that summer. As a small child standing on Slacky Drive, I thought I was watching a parade walk by. I did not realize I was watching history go down the street. At the end of that march, in Karaoke Baptist Church, Dr. Martin Luther King said, if justice is not for everyone, then there can be no justice for anyone. If justice is not for everyone, there can be no justice for anyone. Ladies and gentlemen, there must be justice for the good men and women of the DeKalb County Sheriff's Department who were demeaned when they had to perform personal tasks for their boss, the sheriff. There must be justice for the taxpayers of DeKalb County who were robbed of the good work of their government employees when a corrupt sheriff had their employees working in his private business. There must be justice for the citizens of DeKalb County who were denied their right to vote, their right to be represented by a sheriff of their choosing when a man so consumed with power had the rightful sheriff assassinated. There must be justice for the family of Derwin Brown, for Phyllis Brown, who lost a loving and caring husband of 23 years, for the Brown children, who lost a caring father, for the Brown grandchildren, who lost a devoted grandfather, for Derwin's mama, who lost a son. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, there must be justice for Derwin Brown. A man who saw wrong, tried to right it. A man who was not scared to take on the unbeatable foe, but paid the ultimate price for having done so. A man who challenged corruption with honesty and integrity in 3 days before he was to take office as sheriff, who was viciously gunned down in his front yard while his family waited for him on the inside. He was gunned down because one man who had been we're taking oath to uphold the law, broke that law. Because one man was so consumed with power, he could not give it up. Ladies and gentlemen, justice demands a verdict of guilty on each and every count in this case. Thank you very much.
This jury deliberated for some 3 days. On the third day at approximately at 11:45, they said that they had verdicts on all of the counts except the first one. That was the murder count. The judge sent them back to deliberate at approximately 2:45 p.m., only 3 hours later, for a total of 19 hours of deliberation. The jurors came back and returned these verdicts.
We, the jury, find the defendant as to count 1, guilty. As to count 2, guilty. As to count 3, guilty. As to count 4, not guilty. As to count 5, not guilty. As to count 6, guilty. As to count 7, guilty. As to count 8, guilty. As to count 9, guilty. As to count 10, guilty. As to count 11, guilty. As to count 12, guilty. As to count 13, guilty. As to count 14, guilty. As to count 15, not guilty. Signed and dated.
And so what this verdict really means is that the defendant, of course,
a powerful sheriff mired in allegations of...
Hey man, at the end of the day, don't break the law, bro. I've seen, the weird part is I've seen this power-driven ambition, and it could drive you to greatness, or it could get you sitting in prison. This is Sidney Dorsey. The irony of this is that I spoke to Sheriff Victor Hill a couple of days ago. Two different situations. But I'm just thinking about, you know, how these people built up certain things, and I guess when you running the show, man, I don't know if it goes to your head, or I don't know what goes on, man. Y'all get in the comment section, man. Rest in peace to Sheriff Darwin Brown, and rest in peace to Sidney Dorsey, man. Y'all get in the comment section, man. Let me know what y'all think, bro.